All right, top of the morning. I need to show you something really quick here. All right, so it is a little cool here and it is mid-July, and I just wanted to show you that it's still getting down to 10 degrees overnight. And so if you're asking, Andre, why are you wearing a toque, a sweater, actually two sweaters, and long pants, it's because it is still cold where we are up here in the northern climate of Canada. However, the garden and the greenhouse are still doing well. A little couple things are coming up because it's not getting warm, but it is what it is. However, you that are watching might be starting your gardens or have started your gardens by now and are not too sure what to do in the summer when it comes to maintaining your garden, maintaining your plants, and so on and so forth. And so that's what I'm gonna do today, is gonna be doing a couple tips and tricks as well as a tour throughout our gardens and greenhouse, and showing you what we've implemented and what works for us. So we're in the greenhouse to begin with, and the first and foremost thing I want to do is talk about the tomato plants that are behind me. Now, tomato plants, they are great. There is a variety here. We have 7 different kinds of tomatoes here. We have 6 just along here, and then if you look in the back here, we have 3 tomato plants as well. Now, tomato plants, they can grow pretty bushy or tall depending on how you maintain them or train them. Now, one thing that I want to talk about is taking suckers off of your plant. And you might be asking, Andre, what are suckers? Well, suckers are a portion of the plant that grows off the main stem and will produce another plant off of that. And you can either let them go or you can remove them. And what I like to do and what I've been taught is to remove them, because it forces the energy and the nutrients to the places that matter in the plant. So growing height-wise, wider rather than going wide, concentrating the energy and the nutrients to developing the tomatoes rather than developing the plant. And so I'm going to get into a couple of these plants here. I'll show you exactly how to identify a sucker and how to deal with them. So let's get into this. All right, we're going to be starting to look at this plant here. This is a Jasper purple tomato. And it has already started producing tomatoes, as you can see right here. Now, we have more tomatoes here, and you can see that it comes off the main stem. Now, let's focus in on this stem here. One thing that I do have is 2 main stems that come up on this plant. And the reason I have 2 main stems is when I was younger, I took my scissors and I topped the plant right here, and that allowed those 2 branches to start developing and increasing the amount of production. So technically with this plant here, I have 2 main stems. Now let's follow this one main stem here. Now this main stem here continues on, and it has this side stem here, and these ones with the flowers are the ones where your tomatoes will come from. Now if you continue up the stem, you will notice that I have a little leaf starting right here, and if I continue up, I have another tomato stem coming up, and moving up forward higher, I have another stem here. Now these stems here are your suckers. If you notice stems that look like this, those are going to be tomatoes in the future. They have to flower first and then become your tomatoes. So these are your suckers right here. And what you want to do is, if you don't want your energy, the energy of the plant to be directed to this sucker, which will develop into another plant and develop more tomatoes, but however, the energy needs to be directed to this stem to be developed. So what I like to do is just simply break them off like that, and you go down to this one as well, and you snap that. Now, you do not want to snap this branch off, because this is where all the sunlight is collected that will feed to your tomato plant. Now, I have multiples of these. You have one there, and now here is a perfect example of one that I have neglected. If I can get the sun to cooperate here with me in the camera settings. So you can see I have a main stem here, and now it's shot out into two different ones. However, because I didn't nip it in time, it has developed, and you can see future tomatoes starting here. So I'm going to leave this one alone, because I also have tomatoes starting here. Now that's one thing you have to do, like this one here. This here is a sucker, so I need to remove that so that it does not develop into another stem, and I'll leave this one here. And then you work your way down, and if you keep on it every day, you'll notice that you won't have any. This is where I removed all of them, any stems, and you can see them developing like that as well. You can remove them. I like to let them go a little bit longer, and they're pretty well maintained in here for the most part. I just have to maintain the higher parts, and everything's good to go. Tomatoes are coming in. If you're looking at doing Ace 55 tomatoes, I do not recommend them. They are not doing the greatest. So you can see this plant is massive. However, there's, I think, one set of flowers in there. Whereas if I go over to this, this is what we call, what I have been told is called a heart flower or heart tomato. And so you can see the amount of tomatoes that are coming in already on this one, and they've been all planted at the same time. If you come to this other one as well, this one I'm not sure of the type of tomato it is. I was just told it's a heavy yield tomato, and obviously you can see that we have lots of flowers developing, lots of tomatoes coming in, and we'll be actually harvesting one very shortly. So, all right, now we are in the lower garden, and we're going to be talking about our potatoes. If you have not hilled your potatoes by now, you should. The reason you're going to want to hill your potatoes is because it allows them to grow bigger and in more abundance. And your potatoes also don't have to work in the densely packed soil that is beneath. So if you hill your potatoes, it's a lot better. Another thing is, so this is our potatoes here. You can see we've been kind of slacking on the weeding part, but that brings me up to my next tip, is make sure you fluff up the soil. And by fluffing it up, I mean by taking like a rake or a hoe and actually working the soil and turning it all over. What that does is two things. It allows the soil to breathe if you overwater it, and so it allows it to dry a lot easier and a lot quicker. And the second thing that it does is it also weeds your garden at the same time. And the times that I've noticed that work best for weeding and also fluffing up your soil is to do it early in the morning on a day that you know it's going to be sunny and hot. And that's one of the reasons you can still see some weeds that we have not taken care of. That's our radishes, which I will touch on in a second. But like you'll notice in here, our weeds are a little taller than they should be. And that's because we've been getting consistent rain over the past probably week. And it has not been very warm either. So the weeds have been able to take off. But if you do decide to, or when you go to fluff up your soil and or weed, I would do it in the morning, because if you do it in the morning and you know the day is going to be hot, when you turn over the soil or pull out the weeds, whatever it is, the sun will now burn off the roots of the weeds and they will die off. Now, if you were to do it, say in the evening, turn over the soil, water your plants, now you're going to allow the roots to regrow again and the weeds to regenerate. So if you want to weed on the same, or the water on the same day that you weed or turn over your soil, I would recommend you turn over your soil in the morning, let the sun beat on the roots of your weeds, kind of kill them off and start the decaying process, and then later in the evening water your gardens. And I would actually recommend that you watering them right at the plant rather than using a sprinkler and allowing the potential for those weeds to grow again. Now, back over here, another tip is if you have radishes, you've probably wanted to harvest them by now. And if you don't, you're going to want to do what I am doing over here is we harvested what we wanted for radishes, and we are now allowing the other plants that we did not harvest to flower out, and we will be harvesting the seeds. All right, now the next thing I want to talk about is bugs. You're going to want to check your tomato plants, your pepper plants, your cabbages for bugs and pests that might be eating them. You're going to want to check on top of the leaves, under the leaves. You're going to want to check on the soil as well. And the biggest way, I can't show you any examples because we really don't have any bugs on our plants at the moment, and I'll tell you the reason why in a second. But what you want to check everywhere, and what you'll notice on your leaves specifically is they're going to be holes in them. They're going to be discolored. You'll notice that they don't look healthy. So you're going to want to check for bugs eating your plants. And one thing that I've noticed, especially this year, we tried it last year, but because we weren't really well off with the climate, we just came out here, we didn't know what we were doing. We tried it last year, but this year it works a lot better. It's called companion planting. Companion planting is researching what plants grow well with other plants and vegetables and herbs, yada yada yada. And depending on how you do your companion planting, some will allow the plants beside them to grow faster by not taking the same nutrients out of the soil. However, some plants, if you plant them next to each other, prevent bugs coming and killing off the other plants. And that's the way we did it. We did not worry about the nutrients in the soil because we are putting nutrients into the soil with the manure that we get off the homestead and all the organic matter that we get out of our composters. So bugs we've really not had any issues with. You'll typically find them on cabbages. You'll find them on tomato plants, which are right there, and pepper plants as well. And potatoes. You'll find potato bugs all on your plants too, which again, we have not had any issues with this year either. The only thing we are having issues with our watering to keep the water on this side. As you can notice, the potatoes on that side are a lot bigger, but you know, it is what it is. And now the final thing I want to talk about, or actually the second last thing I want to talk about, is supporting your plants. Now, if you noticed in the greenhouse, I had to support one of our tomato plants just because it was so tall. I'll show you, I'll leave a little clip in here. I just put some string down, tied it to a hook, and to support the plants. But that's why we also have tomato cages, but sometimes those don't work either. And I'll show you a perfect example of when you don't maintain your sucker plants or your sucker shoots, and you don't support, you get something that's similar to this. So I tried to support it with a twine, but it outgrew the cage broke up. I'm gonna probably right after I hit the stop button on this is get in here, kind of re-support it and get it going. You'll notice your plants that are outdoors grow a lot more vigorously than they do typically in the greenhouse. That's just my experience. Also, if you have beans that are climbers or runners, they call them as well, you're going to want to help them get onto their support system. So if it's a pole, if it's a trellis system, something of that nature as well. And the final thing that I'd like to touch on, and so just a quick note, if you're looking at here and being like, boy, Andre, there's a lot of weeds in this section of the garden. This here is because these are all, majority are crawlers. So we have our pumpkin right here. We have another pumpkin right there. These are the squashes. In the back are the cantaloupes. Over here we have 2 watermelons. And so the idea with weeding this section here is as the crawlers crawl, I clear the weeds out as they crawl. That way it also identifies a decent pathway as to where we can walk, where we can't walk. And a quick tip is the dogs, if you have dogs on your property and you don't want them crawling or walking all over your garden, leave walkways with weeds there. And I don't know, our dogs have kind of adapted to the idea that it's okay to walk on the grassy sections in the garden, but not on the just the soil part. So that's why we have so many weeds here. And so our final, or my final little tip is, if you haven't been able to get anything going right now, yes, it's mid-July. However, depending on where you live, you may have a longer growing season and you still have time to replant certain vegetables and fruits. Well, maybe not fruits, but vegetables for sure, like cucumbers. Cucumbers is typically like a 60-day, 2-month harvest, and that's exactly what we did here. We have our new cucumbers coming up that we planted in there probably about 2 weeks ago. We'll see how they work out. I know frost comes in somewhere around end of September, early October. It is what it is. If we don't get them, we don't get them. We'll have to buy cucumbers this year, but everything else should be good. So if you have not planted your, replanted your vegetables, like lettuces as well, is a very quick one, please do so. And also, if you have any root vegetables that you have not planted, you can do those as well, because a lot of the root vegetables, they are not susceptible to colder weathers. They actually do better, and so you can let them grow longer into the cool seasons. So hopefully this video helped you out with your gardening adventures, especially if you're a beginner and not sure really what to do at this point of the game. If you've enjoyed this video and got some good nuggets, follow us, subscribe to this channel, hit the thumbs up. Also follow us on Instagram and TikTok for other tips and tricks and extravaganzas. I'll talk to you on the next one.